Greetings, I'm Ann Huang, Executive Director of World Arts West. I'm super excited about launching our Living Traditions video series. We want to thank many of you for supporting World Arts West over the years. If you like what you see today, please go to worldartswest.org to support our programs. Enjoy the episode today.
Hello, my name is Latanya D. Tigner, co-artistic director of the San Francisco Ethnic Dance Festival. We'd like to begin tonight by recognizing the Bay Area is contemporarily known as Ohlone territory. There are 8 language dialects and many active tribal groups. We acknowledge San Francisco Bay as the territory of the Yamalu Ramatush Ohlone.
Thank you, Latanya. Hello, my name is Mahialani Uchiyama, and I am co-artistic director of the San Francisco Ethnic Dance Festival. With Living Traditions, World Arts West aspires to lead our audience on a journey that explores various dance disciplines through a series of online interviews. Our conversations with artists focuses on their art form, its history, and what makes it unique. Each episode focuses on one company practicing a specific tradition. We discuss how they find a balance between holding tradition and embracing innovation. Additionally, we want to give you the opportunity to ask questions of the artists, as well as learn a basic dance movement from the tradition they practice.
Thank you, Mahia. Today, we will be interviewing artistic director Navi Sekek of Nava Dance Theater and company member Shruti Abhishek.
Hello.
Hello. Before we launch into questions, viewers, if you like the program today, please support World Arts West by going to worldartswest.org to make a donation, or you can text to the number you see on the screen before you. Also, be sure to post your questions and comments in the chat, and we will get to as many as we can. So, again, welcome. Good to see you. So let's jump right in. Can you describe Bharatanatyam dance to those who may not be familiar, and then also what makes it classical Indian dance?
Sure. So Bharatanatyam dance is a classical Indian dance form of India, originating from South India. It is recognized now by a lot of rhythmic footwork, really colorful sari costumes, bells on the feet, and has a storytelling aspect, which includes hand gestures and facial expressions. So many people in the Bay Area may have seen it before, maybe you've seen it at the festival, or maybe you've seen local schools and companies perform. So I love that it's really prevalent here in the Bay Area. And what makes it classical? I think when we think of classical, when we talk about that word, I mean, it can imply a lot, but in this, it is technically identified by India as one of the classical dance forms. So that there's that aspect. There's also this aspect that you need a lot of training to learn it. This rigor that comes from childhood. Although I do think a lot of folk traditions have that as well. So I don't want to discount that. But in terms of the rigor that we have, it's probably great to learn when you're young, so you can learn the flexibility and the core strength and the stamina that you need, and that takes a lifetime to sort of absorb the information or the learning that comes with Bharatanatyam in terms of movement, in terms of storytelling, in terms of text, music. So there's a lot of different aspects to it.
Cool.
Yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead.
And I think just to add to the classical aspect of it, I mean, all the Indian dance styles, Bharatanatyam for us, it has like a structure, a very, like there's rules to how to hold your hands and how to like move your feet, and so the structure, there's a certain structure that we follow, and I think that's also a reason why it sort of fits in the classical category of dance in India, I think. Yeah.
Cool, thank you. I'd like to ask another question. Thank you, and also thank you, Nadi, for lifting up that other folk traditional dances also have a rigor and a technique, yeah. So what, can you describe, Nadi, how you were inspired to use the medium of Bharatanatyam to address social justice issues?
Well, I think for me, Bharatanatyam, I mean, I've learned since I was 5 years old right here in the Bay Area with the teacher Sundara Swaminathan, and 20 years of learning in the Bay Area. This was a part of my life here. It's a part of how my body expressed. It's a part of it's basically my body's language at this point. And so I think the at this point now, as we take in the world around us, the things that we see that's going wrong, I feel like the need to express that through the movement as well, since that's sort of the language we speak. It's allowing those things, the things that are going on around us, to come into our bodies, expressing our response to those things, and hoping that this can help connect us to the people around us in our community. Because what's going on is not specific necessarily to the Indian community. It could be specific to many different communities. And by sharing these stories, we're connecting us to the people we live with, the communities that are around us.
Yeah. Also, I think, like personally, for me, the group that I'm in, there are not a lot of dancers. I mean, I do have a lot of dancer friends, but there is also a section of people who are not into dance, and they don't. So when it comes to like social justice issues, the news that they get is through the paper, or the website, or just in general. And a lot of times it's just facts that's written, the numbers, the statistics. I think so. What Bharatanatyam or any art, I think, does is sort of gets into the emotional side of things, of what's really happening, the deep things that go on at the base of things. And I think when we as dancers, when we present it to a larger audience, it's not really dancers, they really understand, I think, the emotional aspect of it, and what people really feel inside. I think that's a great thing for people.
Good.
So it's I'm really fascinated by how this classical medium is used in conveying current issues, and I'm wondering if you could share with us some of the challenges that you might have encountered as you have developed this in your practice, and maybe if there's some advantages also that you could share with us about what the classical nature of Bharatanatyam brings to expressing issues of identity. And
Yeah, I mean, I think with, like I described before, Bharatanatyam has this rich vocabulary of hand gestures and facial expressions. And so storytelling is this natural thing that we want to do. There's stories from mythology, there's like stories that have been told for hundreds of years through Bharatanatyam. But I think living in the diaspora and being around a lot of other artists, including Bharatanatyam dancers, Kathak dancers, the senior practitioners in the Bay Area, seeing them sort of take a stand with their art and really make a statement to their community about what's right has really been inspiring to me. And it's not, to me, it's not just about telling the facts and figures, like telling the stories as we read them in the paper, but it's really about immersing yourself into the stories and trying to understand the emotional aspect, or like the stuff that really gets you right here, that trying to bring that out in storytelling. And the footage that you just saw was from a production we made called Broken Seeds. And that was about the British India partition. And that was from 1947. We're looking more than 75 years ago. And the people, it's something that we're not necessarily connected to on a daily life, unless maybe your family has gone through partition. And that's the partition where British India was divided between India and Pakistan. And I had the opportunity to work with a visual artist, Rupi C. Tutt, whose family has gone through this. And we worked closely with the Partition Archive, which has collected thousands of witness statements. And going through these statements, you realize that even though this is an event that happened so long ago and continents away, that there are still so many of those same issues that are pressing in terms of communal violence, rioting, like having this like state enforced violence, and things like that. And I felt like I had no choice. We had to describe these stories, not only to bring them to life now, but also to connect to what's going on right now, and to help us realize that this doesn't end unless we do something about it, unless we act.
Nice. I have a question for Shruti. As an artist who lived, born and raised in India and then traveled into the diaspora, we touched on this a little bit before, but how was that for you, moving into the diaspora and finding your dance family in the diaspora?
Yeah. So yeah, it's been a very interesting journey for me. So I've always lived in India for 25 years of my life. I've lived in India and lived in India with my parents, which I think is a totally different mindset when, for kids here, right? So I was always very protected, and so everything was basically handed over to me in a way. So, and also the dance side of it. I worked in a dance company, which the director is our teacher itself. So there's a certain guidance always that you get from the teacher. So I think when I moved to the US, all of that was just taken away by choice. uh, so and then I was like put in a place where I didn't know anyone, and then finally when after months of being in a shell, I decided to finally get out and like look for people of my kind, and then I found Nava and Nadi, and I think that just instantly changed everything for me. And what I realized is, in spite of the cultural difference, like in India and here, the approach towards dance was the same. Like it was not different at all, and I think that was such a huge relief because you have so many notions in your head, assumptions when you like are in a new place and when you don't know anyone. So I think like all the dancers of Nava, like teachers even, most of them have been trained from teachers of India. So this sort of our approaches kind of were in the same path. So I think that was a huge relief. Uh, but what changed, the practice that changed, I think, from India to here was just the dialogue between the audience and the dancer, you know. Like, for example, whenever we've had Nava show or any show, it's very normal to have a question and answer session after the show, which when I was in India, it's not really a norm, which is changing now. But so I think it really gives an opportunity for the audience to kind of, interact with the dancers and like really understand what they did like a few minutes back during the show. So I think that kind of dialogue was very new and very interesting, and that's something that I think imbibed in um, my dance practice, so to say, here. So,
Cool. Thank you. Thank you.
So I have a question about the training that is necessary to be able to effectively convey these themes and effectively be a classical Indian dancer to begin with. I wonder if either of you would be willing to share with us what that is.
I mean, the training, it depends, I think, on where you are. In the US, it seems to be the norm where you start around 4 or 5 years old. You go for once or twice a week classes, and you really spend that time learning basics. I mean, I don't think you do a storytelling episode for years. And some of the steps you do are stamping your feet, and you're kind of strengthening your body for that half sitting position, Arimandi position. And it can get quite boring. I mean, for my own kids, like your years, you're just stamping on the floor. And so I think there is that sort of discipline that is required, and that you really need parent support for, because it's not as exciting as some other classes can be. But with those years comes this sort of dedication to practice and a relationship that you build with your teacher, which I think is really important in Bharatanatyam, because as soon as anything gets hard, I mean, most kids don't want to do it anymore. And having that relationship with your teacher is really what motivates you to keep going. And their faith in you is sort of, I think, for me, a big, like one of the big cruxes of Bharatanatyam and its training. And usually there's this debut performance, like an Iron Gate drum, but it's not necessary, I don't think, there are plenty of dancers who don't do Iron Gate drums who are just fantastic, because they're really dedicated to the practice of the repertoire, the practice of storytelling. But it is sort of a lifetime engagement. And even now, I go to India once or twice a year to train with my teacher, Lakshman sir, and it's ongoing. It never ends, and I don't think there's ever going to be a time where I'm like, okay, I'm fully proficient, and now I don't need my teacher. And I believe my teachers are the same way. They also go back to their teachers whenever they can. And I think the key to Bharatanatyam for me is that learning is forever, and that we'll never get to the end of it. And I think with that searching, with that questioning, and with that with those relationships, I feel like I'm able to sort of delve into new topics. And without that sort of traditional practice as my foundation, I'm not sure I would feel like I have the ability or even authority to sort of delve into these different topics that we have delved into.
Nice. So remember, viewers, if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat for us. We want to make sure we get to those. I know you have burning questions. I know that. I feel it. So go ahead and put them in the chat. I have a question. How does your storytelling impact the design of your regalia?
Mm-hmm.
And we had an interesting conversation around around that.
No, I mean, so it's funny because like Bharatanatyam, when many people see Bharatanatyam, you think of like really beautiful saris and like the hair and the makeup, and I love those things. Like, I love getting dressed up for programs, and I really miss it right now during this sort of lockdown situation. But I think what I realized with the stories that we're telling, like with Partition, and I worked with collaborators on a piece about the Me Too movement, and there was a piece with the Oakland Ballet. It is so, I think we don't want the costume and regalia to distract from the story, especially when we're giving those narratives so much priority and wanting those stories to be shared to new audiences. And so we take great care in deciding what part of the costume stays and what doesn't distract from those real stories that we're talking about. And I think we tend to dress down, like this company dress down generally, and it feels like with every show we are dressing even like doing less and less. But that's just something that it's something I discuss with the dancers and collaborators as well. It's definitely not a decision I make on my own. It's if it depends on the audience, it depends on the story, and like sometimes just wearing your hair in a bun and wearing a bindi and bells are enough with the practice sari, like a cotton practice sari. And I think if you can effectively communicate your story, then that's all we need. And sometimes, especially in the US, if you wear the full getup, that like the audience is looking at that for the first 15 minutes of our show. And so in India, that's not usually the case. People are like, yes, that's great, next, So I think it's all about that context, and we need to be hyper aware of where we're performing and what we're performing when we make those decisions.
That's extremely interesting to have to kind of remove something so that you can be seen and heard in a way. When sometimes people have to get louder and more visual, to be seen and heard. So
we've definitely had like organizers, none that we've performed for, and but that have been like, we really need you to wear the full costume. And I mean, we could if that's what the story, but I mean, if that's what you're looking for, then you're missing,
right?
You're missing a lot of what we're trying to show,
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering about your music and how you select your music, and do you essentially repurpose pre-existing songs to present your story on top of it? How does that work?
So a lot of Bharatanatyam compositions, like typically or traditionally, exist. I mean, we use the Carnatic music tradition, and many compositions are already there. The repertoire, there's many pieces in the repertoire that exist that we draw from, and musicians often know those pieces. And if we ask them to do a traditional program, they're often like, okay, which piece? Yes, we can do that. Yes, okay. But with the company, what I've really found like so much joy and satisfaction in is working with musicians to develop brand new material. I mean, it's still within the classical Indian raga system. We're not I guess not always, but depends. But it's really about working with musicians like G.S. Rajan, Sindhu Natarajan. We've worked with Rupa Mahadevan, Chris Evans, who is a cellist in the Bay Area, some of you know. I mean, it is about thinking about the story and working with the musicians to develop a piece from the ground up. And that's what I love that process. And what has come from that process is a lot of live music performances, because we just adore working with musicians, and especially the ones we work with, like you see some of them here. And then what else has come from that is this idea of improvisation in our storytelling. And that the idea is that if you know the story well enough, and you know the parts of the story that you really want to share, and if the musician is with you the entire time, that you guys could improvise together and really create a piece on stage, even if it's just a few minutes. But it comes from people, all the collaborators, being deeply immersed in the story and wanting to bring some new part of that story to life in performance. And that's something that I'm addicted to now, and I don't think I can do it any other way.
Thank you. That's really amazing. I love the whole idea of that. And it's, yeah, I know of a number of artistic traditions where that's the case as well. I'm just not used to thinking of it in terms of Bharatanatyam for some reason. So I'm really, really love hearing that.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't come up with it. Right? So it's just something I really love. And my teacher in Chennai, Lakshman Master, he's the one that sort of introduced this idea. I have like a tendency of not being able to memorize anything. Like, so it's like a problem that I have. So he was like, well, why don't you know the story, you know the lyrics, you know the music. So what is it that you're trying to tell me? And just do it, And he's kind of the one that brought that idea of you just dance. And don't like some of these stories, like if you hyper choreograph them, they're not going to come out as authentically or as honestly as you want them to. So it's like if you know the story and you're telling the story for the first time, like that's going to be sort of the most truthful way the story comes out. And so that idea has really stuck with me as we like make work now.
I have one question before we move into the movement segment, and this is for Shruti. Do you feel that there's anything that's kind of taboo in terms of being talked about through Bharatanatyam?
I'm sorry, can you repeat your question?
Is there anything out of bounds in terms of like you cannot, and this comes from the question of Daniel Sternberg, anything out of bounds from being told through dance? Yes.
Interesting question. Well, I don't think there is anything out of bounds through any form of dance or art. I think art is it's a reflection of I think the society in general. So, and I think if you have the guts to, I think just talk the truth through your art. In our case, through Bharatanatyam, I think, I don't see there's anything that can stop us in a way. I don't know.
I mean, I agree. I mean, I'm sure that not everyone will like everything everyone does. That's for sure. And there are, maybe certain authorities on dance that maybe say one thing or the other, but I think a lot of what we hear from our teachers and mentors is like if you have that conviction, and you can convince us that this is supposed to be done through Bharatanatyam, then go for it. And that doesn't mean we're not, like we obviously take feedback and criticism and want to grow as artists, but I feel like all over the world, it's not just the Bay Area, that even in India, Singapore, Malaysia, UK, like people are taking on topics. I mean, even the Bay Area, like there have been productions on Black Lives Matter, on in Bharatanatyam. I mean, and it's not Nava. These are so it's out there, and whether you agree or not, I mean, if that artist has that conviction, we kind of got to sit up and listen.
That's right. I love that. So we're going to move into our movement portion. So folk out there, let's go. Folk out there, get ready. Okay. And again, if you're interested in contributing to World Arts West, you can go ahead and make a donation at worldartswest.org. Yes, thank you. So Nadi, if you can explain what we'll see.
Okay, so what we'll do, while Shruti gets ready, I'll just go through what we're going to be doing. We'll do sort of just how we start every class, like a namaskaram. And then Shruti's going to do a quick demo of this piece, and then we'll show you the different hand gestures to try, and then we'll do it again, and you can do it with her. It shouldn't take very long, but we're really excited to share this with y'all. The piece that we are sharing is a minute from our Broken Seeds production. And this is a piece called When I Return. And it was sort of this, a lot of this production is quite sad and really goes to dark places. But the very, very first piece is inspired by a poem about revisiting your childhood, a childhood that you couldn't, you can't really go back to because of time, but in this case, the poet can't go back because of partition. But what really, this is Jiba Ananda Das, a Bengali poet. And what really struck me about this poem was the nostalgia and the joy that you feel when you think of your childhood. And to some degree, like none of us can really go back because it's something that's the past. And a lot of the real world opens up our eyes to things that are not as nice. And so this piece is sort of this nod to that time of life where things were a little more innocent. So we wanted to bring a little joy to everyone today. So yeah, Shruti, if you're ready, we can start with the Namaskaram and then you can show the demo. Ready?
Can you see me?
Yeah, okay, with you. Okay. So this Namaskaram is usually how we start all the classes, and it's a way that we pay respects to our teachers and the ground we're stamping on. Ready? Ini ta ka ini ta ka ini ta ka ini. So now I'm gonna have Shruti show the piece that we're going to have you all do. So first just watch it and then we'll describe the hand gestures and then we can do it with her. And in this scene, she shows this beautiful area that she's playing in. You can see flowers and birds, and eventually it starts to rain. And so in that rain, she finds the joy of like jumping in puddles and really just having a great time. Oh, and the poem, the lyrics that you hear, I talked to my dad, who is a poet, Thambi Antony. I talked to him about the poem and I asked him if he could translate it into our language, Malayalam, so you can hear the lyric that he wrote. This music is composed by G.S. Rajan and it's sung by Manasa Suresh. Thank you, Shruti. So some of the things that you'll notice is the hand gestures she's using. So we have the Alabatma Kaha. Yes, the Alabatma, and that the gesture themselves we learn like sort of like alphabets in our dance classes, and on their own they don't necessarily mean anything, but they can mean so many different things. It just depends on the context that you give them. And in this case, she used it to describe like the really beautiful area that she's in. She showed her the flowers that are around her. And eventually, we couldn't see as clearly, but the sun, we showed the sun and we just move back, and sort of the rays that are coming down on her. So there's so many ways you can use it. So if you're dancing along with Shruti, those are the ways you can show like how beautiful your space is. And maybe your space is your living room, but it'd be great if you could imagine sort of like where you used to play as a child. I imagined this park that was like across the street from my house and that I would run off to without my parents knowing. So that's what I think of. So it's like, I loved it. And so it's like visiting that place in your memory again. So you show how beautiful it is, you look around, and you show the beautiful flowers or whatever is blooming in your area. Yeah. From there, you show the sun and the beautiful rays. And we're in California, so that's common for us. I don't know how it is for everyone else. Yeah. Then from there, we use the pataka. You can see it goes like this. Pataka. And like I said, on its own, it could really, I mean, it just depends on how you want to use it. You could say, you know, hi or bye. You could say, get out. You could say, come here. And in this case, Shruti uses a variation to show the rain coming down. That's one. And then she uses it to show like the space around her. Yeah, that's one. Was there any other mudras that you used, Shruti?
Yeah, this.
So we use that alabathma again to show like the rain coming down from like the trees around you. Yeah. So you kind of make this like round shape with your hand. It's kind of like balletic, if you will. I can't really show you. Shruti's gonna have to show you. Yeah. So you can see like the you imagine the trees waving, and then when it rains, you can like the drops fall from the trees. So that's where these sort of abstract movements come from. Yeah. So Shruti's gonna show it again, and then we can do it with her.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope everyone is warmed up.
Yeah. Warm up. And some of the other things that she did were with her footwork. I don't know if you want to quickly show that too.
Sure.
The jumping in the puddles. So
Yeah.
Mahaya and Latanya don't get up, but everyone else gets up.
Okay.
So it's like a 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So it's a jump on the one, and there's a 2, 3, 4, and you jump. And these are variations of steps that we do in class. Yeah. So those are things you can try. All right. Well, we're going to try it with you, Shruti.
Cool.
Thank you, Shruti. Well, awesome. Nice. We have a couple of questions from the audience. Let's see. Hold on, let me make sure okay. So from Samhita, I'm sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly. It's for Shruti. To Shruti, when did you realize you wanted to teach Bharatanatyam? Do you also teach Bharatanatyam, Shruti?
I do, and that is from one of my students.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this was very early in life. I think I was 15 or 14, and I owe it all to my teacher Rohini Singhi, from whom I've trained since I was 5. And I think she really instilled, as Nadi said earlier, to teachers. They give you so much guidance all throughout, and so much confidence, not just in dance, in life too. Also, I think dance and like life goes hand in hand a lot. So yeah, the confidence that she instilled in me, when the world said arts, you can't really do anything in art. What are you gonna earn? How much are you gonna earn? And so on and so forth. She really sort of pushed me and understood that I had this passion, and and the passion, if it's just kept like a side job, wouldn't have explored how much I am able to explore now. So I think, and so that confidence from her sort of inspired that, okay, this is something that I want to do. I want to kind of spread too. So, and yeah, it really motivated me to get into teaching from a very early age. And yeah, it's been fun.
Cool. Nice, nice. We have another from Sir Ravi. Do you believe this traditional art form should evolve? If yes, in what way? If no, what's your reasoning?
Hi, Survey. I think you need to evolve. There needs to be some evolution. I think that comes with how we live, and there is that aspect of art making that, we're given this language in which we express, and as the expressions change over generations, naturally how we dance it might also change. But then I also think there's an importance to maintaining or preserving sort of the history of where the art came from. So there is this idea of creating new work or making new pieces, or even, I don't want to say repurposing, that's not the right word, but doing the same compositions again and again in new ways. That's also, I think, an evolution. But there needs to be a priority, especially in an art form like this, where we are giving that respect to dancers and traditions that have been around forever, and we really need to do a better job of archiving those pieces. And I think Western dance does that. There's sort of an archive of dancers from generations, but in Bharatanatyam, there's an archive, but I think there needs to be a greater priority put on the hereditary community and really supporting them, and because that's really where the art form came from, and really understanding why they aren't given the platforms that they need to be given. I think there's a big reckoning in dance right now with that, as we sort of understand like what our place is, and potentially appropriating some of these traditions, and like how do we give space to the people who have really been doing this for hundreds of years, and those communities that really base their livelihoods on these traditions. So I think that there's that aspect as well. And so yes, there's the evolution, quote unquote. It's just this changing, or a changing of expression, and that really reflects how we change. But then there's also this priority that needs to be put on the history and preserving what is a part of this tradition.
Sorry. Also
Yeah.
I think, just to add a little bit to that, also I think as much as it is evolving, I think we are also, I think as dancers, going back to the texts that were written like hundreds of years ago. Top of my head, this very famous Indian poet Bharatiyar, who I think, who was a social reformist, and at that time, the poems that he wrote about, the Indian independence and injustice, or all of that was happening at that time, is so relevant even now. I think it's important for us to sort of go back to even all those texts and kind of present it in today's time, because it's as relevant as it was 100 years ago.
Yeah, that's true.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
We have, and pardon me if I mispronounce, Anupama has a question. Do your team members train together often? You have wonderful chemistry on stage.
Thank you. So all the company members that we work with now and in the past, we've all trained from different teachers and different backgrounds, some in India, some in the US. So that all is very different. I'm not a teacher. But what is really amazing is that everyone that comes in really comes with an open mind and open heart. And we train once or twice a week. And when we have shows that we're making, we're meeting 2 or 3 times a week. in San Francisco, and a part of that is being together and really being in process together with the choreography. I come in with some ideas because we have limited time where it's not 9 to 5 as we all wish it could be, but we come in with ideas. But really, the dancers, their ability and skill level, their chemistry with each other is really what dictates the direction of the piece and how awesome it ends up being. I mean, I love the dancers that we work with. I can't say enough about them. So, Shruti, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and I think there's so much time that we put in, right, towards a show. I mean, yes, it's twice a week. If it's still like 4 5 months before the show, but as the show nears, the show date nears, it's literally we're meeting daily, every day, every evening, and spending like hours together. And I think just spending time with I think all our heart towards this one goal sort of really gets the group together. And I think it comes to a point that you sort of know what the other person is going to do, or so and like such things which you sort of miss in like solo dancing. But yeah, but I think the amount of time that we put in for this is incredible.
Yeah, and a part of that is really getting a group together that gels well, and you can really like break bread with that group and really go beyond just rehearsal. Like we like spending time together, and we miss each other right now. So that's a huge part of how well a group moves together.
Cool. Nice. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. This has been a wonderful episode to round out our series. Thank you so much. Thank you to the viewers for joining us today and those who submitted questions. Thank you, Navi, and thank you, Shruti, for participating in Living Traditions and for sharing your wealth of knowledge and your passion to tell those stories that need to be heard in your body language, in your known body language. And so, thank you very much.
Thank you for having us. I thank you all so much for having us, and with all the I know this is just one event, but there are so many conversations that happened before, and with not just Mahia and Latanya, but with Sonia and Danielle and Anne. And so I think it's always a pleasure to work with you guys. And so we're so happy that we can be here. I just want to give a shout out to all the amazing dancers and musicians that we work with. I mean, all the footage that you see is online with all the credits. I mean, this is not a solo show. It's not just a me and Shruti show. This is a program that has been going on for years and really thrives on the fact that we have so many amazing artists in the Bay Area that we work with, and funders that support our work. So definitely want to give everyone a shout out.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you
so much.
Thank you.
And if you enjoy the opportunity to visit with cultural treasures as much as we do, please consider a donation to World Arts West, following the link here. And this is the last of our conversations of this Living Traditions series. We've been encouraged by your interest and will continue to look into more opportunities for cultural enrichment in the future.
I would like to personally thank all of the artists who participated in Living Traditions. This was World Arts West and San Francisco Ethnic Dance Festival's first virtual offering of this kind, and we moved into it because we needed to, but we also moved into it because we wanted to. This was, we felt these types of conversations to deepen an understanding of the cultural work that the artists that support and participate in the San Francisco Ethnic Dance Festival do beyond the stage. There's so much background, and again, that cultural work that happens before things get put on stage, and that happened all throughout the year beyond the San Francisco Ethnic Dance Festival stage. I would like to thank the World Arts West production manager, Sonia Pina, for ushering us into this virtual community space, Daniel Hall for supporting us on the live stream, and for Executive Director Ann Wang for her unyielding support and dedication to the community of artists that, again, support and our families to the San Francisco Ethnic Dance Festival. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We appreciate all of the encouragement we've gotten. Thank you for being here with us. And we're going to take you out, not take you out, we're going to usher you, we're going to usher you out this evening with a video of the artists that we had selected to participate in this year's festival. Thank you and have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
I Hemeleno Kokolo Hibai. Kapo Iki. Alayız boy boy boy, kanayız boy boy. Alayız gelme hay, kanayız gelme. Alayız boy boy boy, kanayız boy boy. Alayız gelme hay, kanayız gelme. Alayız gelme, kanayız gelme. Alayız gelme hay, kanayız gelme.